The annual Stevens family dinner was always a masterclass in subtle cruelty, but this year felt different. Maybe because I knew something they didn't, or maybe because after 15 years of disappointment, I was finally ready to let the mask slip. I sat at the far end of my parents' mahogany dining table, watching my sister Amanda showcase her new engagement ring, a gaudy diamond that caught the chandelier light like a disco ball. She worked as a senior financial analyst at Meridian Tech, the same company where our father had spent the last 30 years climbing to middle management. 3 promotions in 4 years, Dad beamed, raising his wine glass. That's my girl. Following in her old man's footsteps. Mom dabbed her lips with a napkin, pride radiating from her perfectly maintained facade. And now engaged to the department head. We always knew you'd make us proud, sweetheart. I took a slow sip of water, letting the ice clink against my teeth. The irony wasn't lost on me. 4 years, they'd positioned Amanda as the family success story. The one who did everything right, who followed the prescribed path to respectability. Meanwhile, I was the cautionary tale. So, Sarah, Amanda turned to me, lips curved in what others might mistake for sisterly concern. Still doing that, what do you call it? Consulting thing? Something like that, I replied quietly. Dad's face darkened. He'd never forgiven me for leaving Meridian Tech 5 years ago, turning down the entry-level position he'd arranged. At least your sister has a real career, he scoffed. Not some makeshift freelance operation. The words stung, but not for the reasons they thought. I wasn't hurt by the dismissal. I was tired of maintaining the lie. What they didn't know, what none of them had bothered to discover, was that my consulting thing had evolved into Shadow Peak Ventures, one of the most aggressive private equity firms in the tech sector. We operated in stealth mode, acquiring undervalued companies and restructuring them from the inside out. And tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., we were finalizing our biggest acquisition yet, Meridian Tech. I'd spent 2 years orchestrating this deal through shell companies and proxy investors, making sure my name never appeared on any public documents. The board had approved the sale last week, desperate for the bailout after years of mismanagement had left them vulnerable. Only 3 people knew I was the actual buyer. My lawyer, my CFO, and Gregory Phillips, Meridian CEO, the same man my father had been unsuccessfully trying to get a meeting with for the past decade. I hear Meridian's going through some changes, I said casually, watching my father's face. Any rumors in middle management? He straightened his tie, always eager to prove his insider knowledge. Nothing to worry about. Just standard corporate restructuring. Phillips knows what he's doing. Amanda nodded, probably already imagining her next promotion. James says it's all positive changes. More opportunities for people who deserve them. James, her fiancé, the department head who'd been cooking the books for years, helping hide Meridian's real financial situation. We had a special file on him, thick with evidence of creative accounting and conveniently misplaced audit reports. I checked my watch. A simple Timex that made my mother wince every time she saw it. In exactly 14 hours, their whole world would shift on its axis. You could still come back, Dad said, his voice carrying that familiar mix of judgment and what he thought was paternal concern. I'm sure we could find something entry-level. Better than whatever you're making with your little business. I smiled faintly. My little business had cleared $300 million in profit last quarter. Tomorrow, it would add Meridian's $2.8 billion in assets to its portfolio. I appreciate the offer, I said, standing slowly. But I should head out. Early meeting tomorrow. Oh. Mom perked up. With one of your clients? I gathered my coat, a plain black wool piece that concealed its Burberry origin. Something like that. A company acquisition. Acquisition. Amanda laughed. You mean like consulting on someone else's deal? No, I said softly. Like buying a company. They all laughed. The kind of laugh reserved for children with big dreams or fools who didn't know their place. Don't get ahead of yourself, Dad warned. Leave the real business to people who understand it. People like your sister. I walked to the door, then paused. You know what's interesting about real business, Dad? Sometimes the biggest moves happen in complete silence. He waved me off, already turning back to Amanda's engagement story. As I drove home in my modest Honda, my Aston Martin safely garaged at my real house across town, I thought about tomorrow. About the moment Gregory Phillips would walk into the boardroom and announce the acquisition. About the look on my father's face when his boss of 30 years would bow and call me ma'am. But mostly I thought about the email I'd received an hour ago from our forensic accounting team. The one detailing every financial irregularity they'd uncovered, including the creative bookkeeping in Amanda's department. I pulled into my Cover Apartments parking lot, the small one-bedroom where I received mail and kept up appearances for my family. Tomorrow I would walk into Meridian Tech not as Sarah Stevens, the disappointment, but as S.E. Stevens, the CEO of Shadow Peak Ventures and new owner of their entire company. The mask was finally coming off, and family dinner would never be the same again. The morning sun cast long shadows across Meridian Tech's glass facade as I pulled into the executive parking garage. Today I drove the Aston Martin. No more pretense. The security guard did a double take. He was used to seeing me in my Honda during the weeks I'd spent quietly observing the company's operations. Miss Stevens. He blinked, checking his list. You're on the executive access list. I smiled, accepting the premium parking pass. New protocol as of this morning. My heels clicked against polished marble as I crossed the lobby. Gone was the modest blazer and simple slacks I'd worn to family dinner. Today I wore power. A tailored Alexander McQueen suit in deep navy, Louboutins that cost more than my father's monthly salary, and my grandmother's vintage Cartier watch, the only piece of family heritage I'd kept. Sarah. I turned to find Amanda's fiancé, James, staring at me from near the elevator bank. His usual smug expression faltered as he took in my appearance. "What are you doing here?" he asked, confusion evident. "And why are you dressed like someone who belongs?" I finished for him. "I have a meeting with Gregory Phillips." He laughed, but it sounded hollow. "There must be some mistake. Mr. Phillips doesn't take unscheduled." "Ma'am," a crisp voice cut through. "The board is waiting." Gregory Phillips himself stood at the elevator holding the door. I watched James's face drain of color as his boss, my soon-to-be employee, bowed slightly in my direction. "After you, Miss Stevens." The executive floor was a hive of activity. Board members in expensive suits clutched folders and whispered in corners. My father, stationed at his usual desk outside the main conference room, nearly dropped his coffee mug when he saw me walk past. "Sarah." He stood abruptly. "What are you?" "Not now, Stevens," Phillips cut him off. "Miss Stevens has a meeting." The conference room fell silent as I entered. 24 pairs of eyes watched me take my place at the head of the table. My CFO, Marcus, sat to my right, our legal team arranged along one side. The acquisition papers lay before each seat, Shadow Peak's logo gleaming in silver foil. "Good morning," I said, my voice carrying the weight of $2.8 billion in leveraged authority. "Shall we begin?" "One moment," James interrupted from the doorway, Amanda now beside him. "They must have called her down in a panic. There has to be some mistake. Sarah's not, she can't be." "Sarah Elizabeth Stevens," Phillips announced, reading from the official documents. "CEO of Shadow Peak Ventures and, pending these signatures, the new owner of Meridian Technologies." The room erupted in murmurs. Through the glass walls I could see my father gripping his desk for support. "That's impossible," Amanda said sharply. "She's nothing. She just does small-time consulting." I opened my laptop, projecting our findings onto the main screen. "Actually, I specialize in identifying undervalued companies with." I paused, clicking to a particular spreadsheet. "Interesting financial discrepancies." James went rigid as his department's numbers filled the screen. 5 years of manipulated reports, all highlighted in damning red. "We'll be doing a complete audit," Marcus added smoothly. "Starting with the financial department." Amanda's perfect mask cracked. "Daddy," she turned to our father who had wandered into the doorway. "Do something." But he just stood there, 30 years of assumptions crumbling around him as his boss handed me a pen. "Miss Stevens," Phillips said formally. "Would you like to sign first?" I took the pen, its weight familiar in my hand. "Before I do," I said, addressing the room but looking directly at my father, "I want to be clear about my vision for Meridian. This company has potential, but it's been held back by outdated thinking, by promoting based on politics rather than merit, by allowing certain individuals to operate without oversight. My gaze shifted to James, who had the decency to look terrified. That changes today. I signed my name with the same flourish I'd practiced in my childhood bedroom, dreaming of moments exactly like this. The same signature that would soon appear on every employee's paycheck, including my father's. "Welcome to the new Meridian Technologies," Phillips announced to the board. As the papers made their rounds, Amanda stormed out, James trailing behind her. My father remained frozen in the doorway, his face a complex map of emotions I'd never seen before. "Mr. Stevens," I said calmly, using his professional name for the first time. "Please have my afternoon schedule cleared. I'll need the company-wide meeting moved to 2 p.m. He stared at me, this daughter he'd never really seen, now sitting in the position he'd spent 3 decades trying to get close to. "Yes," he stammered. "Yes, ma'am." The word hung in the air between us, heavy with 3 decades of dismissal and disappointment. I turned back to the board, ready to begin the real work. Now about those audit findings. The next few hours moved like a carefully orchestrated symphony. Every department head was called in for individual meetings, each one leaving my new office with a different shade of shock on their face. The company-wide email went out at noon. Shadow Peak Ventures acquires Meridian Technologies. Meet your new CEO. I watched through my floor-to-ceiling windows as the news rippled through the building. Employees huddled around computers, phones lit up with messages, and somewhere 17 floors below, my sister was probably having the meltdown of her life. A soft knock interrupted my thoughts. "Come in," I called, not turning from the window. "Miss Stevens," my father's voice wavered. "Your 2 p.m. company meeting is set up in the main auditorium." I turned slowly. He looked smaller somehow, his usual confidence replaced by something that looked almost like fear. "Thank you," I said professionally. "And the executive files I requested?" He placed a thick folder on my desk, his hands trembling slightly. "All here. Every promotion record and salary adjustment from the past 5 years. Including, I knew, the paperwork for Amanda's suspiciously rapid rise through the ranks." "Excellent." I sat down at what used to be Philip's desk. "Please send in Marcus and the HR director." "Sarah," he started, then caught himself. "Miss Stevens." Yes. How long? How long have you been planning this?" I met his eyes steadily. "Remember when you told me I was wasting my time with that consulting thing? I had already made my first $1 million. When you suggested I take an entry-level position here. I had just acquired my 3rd company. And last month at Mom's birthday, when you said I needed to learn about real business from Amanda." I smiled faintly. I was finalizing this deal. He sank into one of the guest chairs, uninvited. "Why didn't you tell us? Would you have believed me?" I asked quietly. "Or would you have done what you always did? Dismiss it, minimize it, explain why Amanda's path was better? But your apartment, your car, your clothes were a cover. Did you ever wonder why I never invited you to my place? Why I always met you at that small cafe downtown? Why I drove that Honda to every family dinner?" Understanding dawned on his face. "You've been living a double life." "No," I corrected him. "I've been living my real life. You just never bothered to see it." Another knock. Marcus entered with Janet from HR, both carrying laptops. "The audit team has finished their preliminary review," Marcus announced. "You'll want to see this." I nodded to my father. "That will be all, Mr. Stevens." He stood slowly, years of hierarchy training battling with parental instinct. "The family dinner. This Sunday." "I'll be there," I said, turning my attention to the reports. "And this time I'll come as myself." The afternoon unfolded like a series of controlled explosions. The audit revealed years of financial manipulation, most stemming from James's department. By 1:30 p.m., security was escorting him out of the building, his engagement ring to Amanda suddenly worth more than his frozen assets. At 2 p.m. sharp, I stood before the entire company in the main auditorium. 3,000 employees, from janitors to executives, all watching as their new reality took shape. "Change," I began, my voice carrying through the perfect acoustics, "is often uncomfortable. But comfort rarely leads to growth." I outlined my vision for the new Meridian: merit-based promotions, transparent financials, increased R&D investment, and a complete restructuring of the executive team. "Some of you have risen through connection rather than contribution," My eyes found Amanda in the crowd, her face a mask of fury. That ends today. Your previous position will not guarantee your future one. Your last name will not secure your next promotion. Starting tomorrow, every role will be evaluated based on performance alone. The energy in the room shifted. Hope from those who'd been overlooked, fear from those who'd been overvalued. My door will be open to every employee with an idea worth hearing, I continued. Because innovation doesn't care about hierarchy and neither do I. As the meeting ended, I watched Amanda charge toward the stage, but security, my security, smoothly intercepted her. This is because of me, isn't it? She hissed loud enough for nearby employees to hear. You're just jealous. You always have been. I approached her calmly, aware of the audience we'd attracted. No, Amanda. This is business. Your department will be audited like everyone else's. If your promotions were earned, you have nothing to worry about. Dad won't let you do this. Dad, I said softly, works for me now. That evening, as the sun set over Chicago's skyline, I finally drove to my real home, a penthouse overlooking Lake Michigan. My assistant had already moved my things from the cover apartment, erasing the last traces of my constructed persona. My phone buzzed with a text from Mom. We need to talk about what happened today. Then another, your sister is devastated. And finally one from Dad, I didn't know. All these years I didn't know. I poured myself a glass of the same wine they'd served at dinner last night, except mine was the original vintage, not the knockoff they'd bought to impress Amanda's fiancé. Miss Stevens, my house AI system announced, Marcus is on the line with the final numbers from today's audit. I smiled, taking in the view of my city. Put him through. Tomorrow the real work would begin. Restructuring Meridian, implementing new policies, rebuilding what years of favoritism had eroded. It wouldn't be easy and it wouldn't be quiet. But I was done being quiet. I was done being the family disappointment. I was finally fully myself. And Sunday dinner? Well, that would be interesting. Because this time I wasn't coming as the daughter they'd dismissed. I was coming as the woman who owned their entire world. And I had 15 years of truth to serve alongside the roast.